Alright. Welcome back to RimWorld, all. So, where to start and begin? Alright, so I want to note that 4 weeks ago, my microphone went on to Kerplitz. I made a little video saying, like, you know, I have a hardware failure, and basically I sent it out to get replaced. That was 4 weeks ago. I basically sent my headset out to Logitech, and it's been, you know, returned, as you can see, because I'm obviously doing right now recording. In that time, those 4 weeks, you basically got to see a little bit, like, of, like, you know, my RimWorld right before I basically sent my Logitech headset away. But after that, I played solo for a while, sort of like, you know, learning the game, playing in different biomes, and, you know, just sort of, you know, trying to get more competent at the game. And I figure I'd basically go through some of those saves of games I basically played, just like sort of tell you about my journey. So here we go. First with Maya Guiz. So, welcome to Maya Guiz. This is my most recent save for RimWorld, and as you can see, I have a fairly competent colony going, you know, along here. I basically have like a sort of mountain base. I got some, like, you know, mountainous, like, you know, diggings going on. And for the most part, this is basically my most recent playing of the game. And in it, basically, I have, like, you know, a nice little kill box up here. Got some turrets, I got some, you know, IEDs, deadfall traps, and, like, you know, defensive bunker. And what basically happened in this game, this is basically a desert biome that I'm in right now, an extreme desert. And I basically want to see what, like, the different biomes are like, and this is probably the most difficult one I basically played in, or, you know, survived in. As you can probably see, there's like a little thing over here called a crash ship part. You'll basically get to see this when I actually showcase it for real, but for now, I'll note that there's, like, you know, events that can happen in game, later events. And just for people who want to know, like, how far along I am, that's about how far I am along. Now, at this time, basically, I don't have any colonies out, and it's because they're all inside these, like, triopods over here. I basically reached a point in this game where I can actually win the game outright, and I can basically show you what you basically want to do. Basically, there's like this, like, you know, ship building function you can do in this game, where, like, you build like a ship of, like, structural beams, cryo sleep caskets, computer cores, ship reactor, and ship engine, and you build a ship to basically go out in outer space. And this is like the ship design right here I have right here. You build it in an outdoor area, you basically go off, and, you know, you basically just, like, you know, win the game that way. Anyhow, as you can see, this map has seen, like, quite a bit of, like, you know, stuff going on. Over here, I've, like, dug out, like, lots and lots of, like, you know, strip mining, shall we say, looking for resources. Same can be said over here a little bit. I tend to try and do the corners, by the way, first in my gameplay, so just try to, like, you know, get rid of, like, any hazardous areas that might be hard to get to later on. There's, like, a couple places I missed, but whatever. Eventually what happened, I basically started deep drilling, and deep drilling is where basically you, like, you know, you dig for, like, minerals under the earth, and basically this is, like, how the game gets around, like, you know, digging for resources on, like, a non-Z levels. Like, you know, in most games you basically have, like, an X, Y, and Z for, like, you know, these Dwarf Fortress Colony type of games, but how RimWorld gets around that, like, you know, Dwarf Fortress style play there, they actually have these, like, deep drilling, like, you know, production facilities that, like, you know, drill, like, resources underneath them to get you resources that you need. And here's one for plasteel, as well as some compacted steel right over here. Anyhow, this game is, like, you know, one of the ones I had farther along. I basically sort of, like, abruptly finished it fairly quickly. Playing it, you'll basically see that I basically went through this for about 14 hours, and, you know, difficulty is rough, BB chillax. I had a fairly, like, you know, a decent amount of threats to happen. I had 15 major threats happen, 11 were enemy raids, and I have 5 colonists killed throughout my gameplay. Now, it's worth knowing that these games that I basically played offline, they weren't, like, permadeath, so that number may actually be a little bit low, because obviously it's likely I would have had a lot more colonist deaths, but, you know, whatever. Well, anyhow, basically, my base is more or less complete. I have, like, all different functions, but I'll explain that in one of my different playthroughs. What I want to do right now, I want to show you what it's like to win the game, so let's just do that right now. So, we're going to launch a ship. And we launch the ship, the screen goes white, and your ship goes off in the air. So you launched a ship, these colonists escaped. These colonists were left behind, nobody. Your AI will now try to guide the ship to a safe place. It might find a prosperous planet for you in the system, or it may undertake a centuries-long journey to another star. It might even decide to hide underneath ice on an asteroid for a few thousand years, waiting for someone to build a nuclear world here. You'll find out when you wake up. Here's like a credits about the developers. So timeline to the left is the direction and all that, blah blah. At some point I'll basically go through that, but we'll actually you know, win the game legit, I guess, on camera for you to basically see what's going to happen with that. So everyone is dead or gone. The story is over. Perhaps someone else will find use for this ruins of this place. I can keep playing if I want to, but let's just go to the main menu and go back to one of my other saves. Alright, so that's basically my most recent colony that I basically had, you know, going underway. Mayaguez. Since I'm done with it, let's just get rid of it, because I don't really need it anymore. And let's visit Landfall next. Alright. Welcome to Landfall. So, this is Landfall. It's basically another mountain type of base. This is like one I did like before, that other one you saw. And as you can basically see, got some like, you know, Muffalo up here that are like, you know, Manhunter's stasis and all that. This was basically a Cassandra Classic gameplay I had going on. Lasted for about the same amount of time as my other one. And you'll probably note, by the way, that Phoebe Classic, it basically, I had like, you know, 15 or 14 major threats. On this one, I've had 36 major threats happen with this game. So it basically shows like how many more threats you'll basically get with like, you know, the normal gameplay. If like, you know, you play with one of like the other storytellers. I've had 7 colonists killed in this one, and this is like with a lot of saves coming, just so you know. And I've taken a lot of damage in this gameplay, as you can see. In many random. You basically have events I think happen way too much for like, you know, your gameplay. It's like, it basically would be like every half hour I was getting like an event. Or even earlier than that, basically, because of like, you know, how the game's basically set up. Anyhow, this is a fairly nice base I have going on. I probably could win this map too at some point, but it basically like agrees on just how many like raids you basically have. And it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. But whatever. Now, I'll note that this biome here is actually a tundra biome, and tundra is like one of like the colder climates that you can basically have if you're playing this game. The only one that's colder than it is, I believe, is like the ice sheet, and I'll note that with the tundra here, it's kind of hot right now outdoors. That's because basically I chose like a tundra biome like as close as possible to like the edges of like, you know, the warmest part I could find. For the most part, the space went pretty well for what it did. I'll note that something I basically have a lot of the time is like bug infestations, and that is like, you know, my major drawing R in this game. Lots and lots of bug infestations over and over and over again. Not a whole lot to do about it, just like, you know, bear, grin it, and just like, you know, press on. For the most part, this base went pretty well. I'll note that I have like, you know, all these caskets over here for like my dead colonists. Over here we have like, you know, a crematorium for like the dead enemies and stuff. Something I like to do, by the way, in my, like, you know, these games that I found out, I like to, like, you know, eventually, like, dig graves for, like, all, like, the enemy combatants that come toward me. And then later, I'll, like, throw them all into, like, a crematorium after, like, you know, I dig up all their graves again. It hurts your morale, like, for a little bit, but, you know, whatever. It basically does the job pretty well. Now, I have to say I really like this, like, you know, map for, like, defensive, like, you know, positions I got. Basically, I have this nice little mountain, but, you know, they, like, you know, dig around in. And I was able to make a nice little defensive fortification with 3 geothermal vents, like right here, in like the middle of like the area. And one over here if I want it at some point later on. Really nice setup for a map. Almost as good as like that, like, you know, let's play one with like, you know, the temperate forest that you basically saw me playing with. Anyhow, that's basically what this map was all about. I'm not going to win this one. I don't have any like, you know, compunction to basically keep playing it. For the most part, it didn't go really badly. It's just it didn't really go that well because, you know, all these attacks over and over again, and just not wanting to basically play with all these attacks basically happening. But anyhow, that's basically this map. And let's press on to the next one. So that was Landfall. Landfall, pretty fun, but it's done. Detroit, however. Detroit was not that fun at all. Alright, well, all these guys are massed out here ready to attack. I basically have, like, you know, a tribal attack coming on my way. In the later parts of the game, you'll basically have raids like of multiple guys happening all at once. And as you can see, there's quite a few of these, like, you know, tribals here to attack me. Lots and lots of tribals, if you want to count them all. So, this is basically the map with Random. It went for 1 day and a half, basically an hour of gameplay time. So, basically I poured a lot of time in this one. It didn't have as many major threats, I guess, as, like, you know, the Cassandra Classic one, but there's still quite a few that happened quite a bit. And I had quite a few colonists killed, as you can see. 12 colonists killed. A lot of damage taken as well. I'll note that I sort of, like, lost interest in this one just because of how random it was. I mean, it's not like it is, like, you know, attacks happening over and over again, kind of like it was with Cassandra Classic, but what I found really happened a lot of the time, it'd be like, you know, the same events over and over again. Like, I basically have, like, you know, I'd have bug infestations over here in, like, this little makeshift prison I made into, like, the side of this, like, you know, bit of a mountain over here, over and over again. And, like, other stuff would just happen as well. Basically, I'd have, like, you know, I basically have attacks over here constantly in this section, like, of the map. Like, there'd be, like, tribals here, tribals, like, coming from, like, the side of the map over here. There'd be sappers, like, all over the place, just, you know, blowing through my walls, blowing through the mountains and all that stuff. It wasn't a bad run by any means, but, you know, whatever. It's, you know, what it was. Now, this is a desert map. It's a little bit different than the extreme desert map that, like, you know, basically saw with, like, you know, that Migue's map they basically had. Something I know about, like, the maps in this game, there's, like, desert and there's, like, you know, extreme desert. In extreme desert, you basically have, like, you know, no way to, like, you know, properly feed yourself because there's, like, no places to, like, make food. The desert isn't so bad. Basically, as you can see, I have some areas basically, you know, get a little bit of soil, basically, to do a little bit of farming in. And I basically have, like, you know, enough area to basically do it if I want to, without having to build, like, these, like, you know, sun lamps or hydroponic basins, basically, to, you know, get food. Now, I'll note that with this map, it really showed something to me, and that's basically, you know, what it's like to basically not have, like, you know, natural defenses. This is basically, like, you know, a small mountains map. It's not flat, but it's not, you know, completely, like, you know, devoid of, like, you know, there's no, like real hill cover, so to speak. I had some hill cover, like, you know, with, like, you know, a couple of these, like, things in the middle here, but for the most part, as you can see, it's a giant box I have to, like, sort of build to, like, basically defend myself. And this is something I sort of expect if, like, you're playing with, like, you know, flat terrain. You'll basically have events happen where you can't really kill box enemies that much, and it makes it very difficult to play. And that's probably the reason I probably didn't like Randy Random so much. I basically had to basically 4 attacks on me a lot. That are basically just from, like, you know, incoming attacks and just, like, basically no way to defend that unless, like, you build, like, a wall and then, like, there's, like, sappers that come at you. It's like it just sucks basically. So yeah, flat terrain, small hills, not that great for playing because, you know, there's not enough defense cover for, you know, what the game throws at you. Oh no, by the way, I do have a hospital down here, which is nice. And I learned something, by the way, about this, about your colonists, by the way, when they get injured. Note that this guy here, he's got, like, no left leg. If your colonists lose a left leg, you can put, like, you know, wood on it, like, you know, peg leg type of thing to basically, let them walk again. But if you're in the desert, you may have, like, wood. I do have wood here a little bit, but I didn't have wood for the longest time, and, like, you know, I decided after a while, I just want to get, like, this guy, like, a bionic leg and want to play with him, but we're probably not going to play anymore. And I got, of course, this ostrich down here, and ostrich is even more, you know, important to note. Ostrich basically has a shattered spine, and if your colonists ever, like, get, like, massive brain injuries or spine injury, as you might expect in real life, they basically, you know, can't walk. And ostrich here is basically useless as a result. I could, like, you know, as you see, I took out, like, his left lung and his kidney, basically, to get, like, you know, some organs from him for use, but basically, ostrich is a useless, like, you know, dead weight in my colony. And that's just something like, you know, no, you can sometimes have dead weights in your colony, you know, just from, you know, the fact that they get so injured that they can't move anymore. And also note that this colony has another problem with it too. If you look at my colonists here, some of these guys that aren't, like, drafted, basically, if you look at them, they're, like, you know, no shooting, no melee from Pepper here. Min here has, like, you know, some shooting, but I don't know why she's not drafted. Oh, she's making a grand sculpture. It's worth noting that sometimes you want to like watch out for like what type of like by the way, here's Ostrich. He can't. He's marked as red because he can't do anything because he's like incapacitated. But something I noticed that basically in the game, you want to basically sometimes like prioritize certain like pawns to be alive. I'm prioritizing Min here to be alive because she's basically really good art, so like she can make really good like art for me to basically sell off. And Hummingbird here is also another one I'm prioritizing keeping alive. Basically, well, let's just put it this way. This guy shouldn't be drafted because he's got fairly good shooting, but he's also got really good crafting. And crafting is like, later on in the game, you'll find that certain skills become more and more important. Like crafting becomes really important later on. Art, even though it's like completely useless in the early game, it does become more important later on for selling stuff for money. And that's what they're very good for. But whatever. That's basically what this game was all about. And I'll note though, by the way, that some of these like interests I have like this interest here, which basically is like a nice little whiny place for guys to get in. Lots of like crooks and candies. I really didn't get enough like time to build like really proper defenses in any places, so this is like sort of like opposite. This is like before I really started making proper kill boxes, or I want to try something different than like kill boxes, and this is what I came up with. But yeah, anyhow, that's basically what the game's all about. This one right here. Let's go jump into like my last colony that I basically built off screen, and you'll basically we'll jump into like Sleepville, and another one will bite the dust. Goodbye, Troit. And then we got the Shemston, which is basically my other win on PB Chillax. Alright, well, this is probably my best base that I made. This is a large hill area in a what do you call it? One of those like rainforest type of biomes. Jungle biomes, I guess we'll call it. And it's probably my best base that I ever made, in this game thus far. The first win, that's like the best one. Down here in like the south, you basically see some motors I built for like, attacking guys from afar. And I actually use these guys to do like disperse a siege when it happened once. I have some, as you can see, like some ammo huts for these like, things to fire with. Lots and lots of ammo to basically fire at enemies. I also have, as you can see, a lot of like these like, doors basically get in. I have like a 2-layer system for getting in. I got like an outer wall and an inner wall. And it's sort of like the box shape that I have like going on, kind of like it did like in like the like other one, but that's just for basically how the large hills were basically made in this one. Basically, I have like a large hill that's like going down to like the thing right here, and this is kind of interesting because I actually divided like enemies that basically spawned in like this corner. They had to like walk all the way up here to basically get to my doors. In many ways, I actually really like this system a lot. This was actually pretty effective defense that I basically had. All these doors basically, when I had like these like outer doors, any enemies that basically like attack like humanoid enemies, they basically go from like door to door to door, like splitting up to each like individual door. And it made it like very easy for me to pick off like groups of enemies because they like all go to like different doors, like and not be very effective at it. The only problem with this map was like the Panthers really early on. I lost so many columns of Panthers in this game, in this like specific game. Now, I'm not by the way that I actually have like all these like different types of. By the way, I actually tamed a panther. I have like all these like different types of like things up here for production. I got like a few machine tables. I got like a component assembly bench. A few like sculptor tables for art. A field smithy. Lots and lots of stuff basically going on. So basically, I'm sort of experimenting with all the different stuff, and it's worth noting you can do a lot of this in this game for like equipping your characters. As you can basically see from right now, all these characters that you're looking at right now, they basically like all have like power armor on. They have power armor helmets, and it's basically all the product of this guy called Engie here. Engie's like my crafter, like my chief crafter, and she's like got like 18 in crafting, so she basically makes this excellent gear. And basically everyone in my colony would have like this like good gear for fighting. So like everyone's gonna have like charged rifles, or sniper rifles if like I don't want them like up close. And like they're like all masterworks or excellent rifles that basically just destroy enemies to get really close. It was basically a really awesome game for what it was. Now this one took a fair amount of time to play as well. It actually took me, as you can see, 30 hours learning the game to like get to the point where I am with this game, and I actually won shortly after this save. Basically, I had 28 major threats, so, you know, about 1 threat an hour, more or less. That's basically what PvChillix is all about, 1 threat an hour. I only have 5 colonies killed, but I'll note that again, save scumming, that did happen quite a bit with like my games off screen. And you probably shouldn't take those colonies deaths, that literal count. There's probably a lot more deaths than one letting on, especially with this one. I escape scum like crazy. Anyhow, this one went pretty well, and I'll note that like with rainforest, you basically want to like, you know, watch out for diseases and stuff. And I'll probably get into what diseases are like in my Let's Play, because we're actually going to go into a biome where the flu is going to be a big common one. But yeah, anyway, this is like the last one I basically played. I got a nice little hospital with like, you know, silver floors, sterile tiles all over the place. I got a nice little like, you know, thing for like getting like, you know, content out. Big orbital trade beacon right there. Alright, well, I suppose we shall continue on to Sleepville. And yeah, by the way, there's actually stuff like, you know, colored lighting in this game as well. There's like some prisoners in these like, you know, colored rooms because I felt like it. And there's some carpets. This was actually a pretty fun little like, you know, play thing I played on. I even managed to build some crypto sleep caskets, even though they're pretty useless to build around these things right here. And there's helplessness. He's the Frumbo I captured. You can actually tame Frumbos if you get around to it too. With extreme injuries. He had a brain injury, he had a right eye injury, a body injury. But whatever. He did his job. He got tamed. Alright, well, that's basically show and tell of like all like the like, you know, colonies I built while I was basically off camera. Now, let's talk about Sleepville here a little bit. So, welcome back to Sleepville. So, this is basically like, you know, where we left off, basically with like, you know, this like, you know, map that I basically got. And this really was probably like the best map for like, you know, defense. Just look at the big mountain region that like extends almost halfway out of the map, and this big lone hill that basically stretched all the way down as well. This was a really good map to basically start off with, and even though I'm gonna miss probably playing this game like, you know, this one right here with you guys, the thing about this one is that I really don't feel like going back to it. I'll note that basically something that was pointed out to me by like, you know, one of the people, Course Knight actually, who basically who also views my channel. I basically had a pretty bad start from this game. In like the first 6 hours and like a half, I've had 4 major threats and I've had 2 colonists killed, and that's not very ideal. I also didn't really build my like, you know, my stuff like the best I could. Like, you know, I'll note that these like, you know, rooms, I built them kind of oddly. They're actually like a little bit too big for what they should be, and at the same time, they well, what can I say about them? Not terrible or anything. It's just that they don't need to be that big. I could have made better use of like the terrain. I also was doing a lot of flooring and stuff like that, which I don't really need to. I found out, by the way, that one of the things that I was basically so kind of worried about is basically hinted at by Course Knight. Later on, if like you basically build anything in like, you know, areas with like, you know, overhead mountain, which is basically down here, you'll basically see in like the left it says overhead mountain, slate tile blueprint, blah blah. Basically, anything with an overhead mountain has a chance to spawn bugs. It's, I guess, you know, something to like, just to warn you guys about. And I'm not sure it really matters how far away from like, you know, the edge of like the overhead mountain it is for basically stuff to spawn. I've had like, you know, in some like games, just like out in like the middle of nowhere, a hive would basically spawn. And in other games, I'll basically have like, you know, a prison built and then like, you know, something will spawn inside like a hive. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. It's just, it happens, and you can't really like prevent it from happening, so to speak. And they're hard to really defend against. And I thought like, you know, making like, you know, smooth tiles might help, but it actually doesn't help at all. They'll spawn regardless of whether or not there's like, you know, anything in or around that terrain. They will spawn. So I wasted a lot of time doing like, you know, flooring and stuff like that, and it's not all that effective. I probably don't need to floor out over here as well all that much either. So there's a lot of stuff I did all around that I didn't really need to. And I think it'd be better basically we start and, well, I'll actually start in like I guess a harder map, shall we say, because this is actually not that hard a map I started in. This map was pretty ideal for like, you know, starting map for like a newbie, but I'm no longer a newbie. Like I've like put almost 200 hours in it. If you basically saw from like, you know, my little like video telling you about my hardware coming back, and I can probably survive in a biome that has like, you know, below 0 degrees in like the winter, and then like, you know, it gets warmer in the summer. I won't be able to survive in like say an ice sheet, but I can probably survive in say a boreal forest, and that's what I'm thinking about going to next, the boreal forest, because you know, I'm Canadian, and we technically live in a boreal forest up here as Canadians. That's the biome we actually live in. It actually is called the boreal forest. Technically, I'll note that in the game, by the way, RimWorld calls it the boreal forest, but it's actually what the biome should be called is taiga, basically T-A-I-G-A. But if you're looking at Canada, like, you know, where I am right now, the boreal forest actually does cover basically the majority of what Canada is. So that's what the boreal forest is. It's basically all of Canada. And that's what we'll probably play with next. I don't know if I'll use these guys over again, but whatever. You might want to check out, say, like, you know, Sporkinator or Manigamar's channels. But for the most part, I think this, like, you know, Let's Play will be done. And this is where basically we're going to end it. It was a pretty good run, but now it's time to say goodbye to it. And just try again, you know, perhaps with, like, you know, some better, more experienced results. Shall we say, the learning is more or less done. Now it's time to basically get into playing this game for real. So, I hope you guys won't mind, you know, the little delay, or I guess like you'll say, like, you know, the ban of this series. It's just like, you know, one of those things. Basically, I put so many hours in, I don't feel like playing this like specific game anymore. But we'll come back to basically play a new game with, like, you know, more harder, like, you know, difficulty, shall we say. And hopefully it'll be a good one to, like, you know, remember. For now, take care, I guess, because we're done. This one will be deleted, and we'll start new.